Hey there, Sarah with NextGEN Medium, enjoying the sunshine. I'm tired of being inside. I had to get outside and get a little sunshine in my life, and I would encourage the same for you. This week we're going to talk about the ego, how that affects your psychic development, how it affects your psychic messaging, and I'm going to share with you the phrase that I use to help ground myself and get ego out of the way. That's coming up this week on NextGEN Medium, the vlog. Oh, hello. This is what my backyard looks like. It is Maine. It just snowed yesterday. You know, it may say spring on the calendar, but not necessarily here in Maine. This week, I wanted to talk about the ego and how that affects your psychic development and your psychic messaging. It's actually a huge factor that gets in the way and actually adds a lot of clutter to your process that everybody could do without. So there's theory about the self, that there's three selves. One is your basic instinctual self, that's sort of your human being, your animal self. Number two is your ego, which is your competitive self that wills itself to survive. And then three is the higher self, and that's where we work when we are working with our psychic abilities. So what is the ego? The ego, like I kind of said, it has to do with being competitive, of trying to get the things that you want, the things that you need, and a lot of energy in the ego is sort of low-lying energy. So this is jealousy, this is anger, this is doubt, a lot of things like that. And that infiltrates a lot of your psychic development and your psychic messaging and can actually just get in the way. Things will be so much easier for you once you're able to identify where the ego is in your development right now, but also recognizing it and observing it, and also trying to find ways to acknowledge why that ego is there during your psychic messaging. These are things that will help you and actually make your process a lot easier. I do understand that ego is sort of just natural in who we are. Don't confuse it with self-esteem, but ego is a way that we find value in ourselves, but also show our value to others. And it's sort of, we decide what's shown. This will help you identify the ways that your ego shows through that maybe you don't recognize. Psychic messaging, why do you do it? It's supposed to be selfless. It's supposed to be in touch with a higher purpose. And if you're dealing with those low-lying ego, negative things, then that's going to infiltrate into your messaging, and that's the stuff that just gets in the way. So let's talk about how ego feeds into your psychic messaging. One way that it feeds in is, let's say you get a message and you pass along maybe the vision that you receive to whoever's sitting in front of you, and then there's sort of this uncertainty that you don't really know what it means, so you start filling in the blanks. So that is step one, is that ego assumes. So ego wants you to fill in that blank. Number two is second guessing. Ego makes you second guess. You saw a vision of a piece of toast, but your ego is going to come in and it's going to be like, hold on now, that doesn't make any sense. Your ego is trying to make logical sense of things. Get it out of the way. If you got a piece of toast, you got a piece of toast. You're not the one to decide whether that makes sense or not. Another thing that the ego wants is it wants to please. It wants to make sure this person who came to see you, who's here to receive a message, receives a message. And sometimes there's no message to give. You don't make it up. Just like filling in the blank. Don't make it up. If it's not there, that is not your responsibility. And lastly, ego has ulterior motives. What does that mean? That means the ego wants credit. The ego wants to show off. The ego wants people to know, I'm special, I'm a psychic, I'm special. And in that case, that's the ego feeding into your psychic development and your purposes in psychic messaging, which sounds like you're not in it for the right reasons. Ways to know when your ego is blocking your messaging. You have a vision of a piece of toast and you're trying to get more about this piece of toast. Why am I getting a piece of toast? You had toast this morning? No. Toast is your favorite food? So the more you mull on a message, that is ego trying to make sense, right? It's trying to make sense of what it means. That's your logic. Logic is important in a lot of aspects of our lives, but when it comes to messaging, you get what you get, you give it to whoever needs to get it, and that's not for you to guess on. Here's a big one that I think a lot of people get stuck on, and that is self-doubt creeps in. You're looking at the person's face, you're telling them, I see a piece of toast. They look completely blank. That is a sign to you that they have no idea what you're talking about. You don't know where you're gonna go from there, and you're wondering, why did I even sit with this person? Why did I even think that I could give psychic messaging? That's your self-doubt creeping in. It's just a part of the ego. The ego always wants to be right. It always wants to have purpose. When it comes to those moments, I've been there, and it's really hard to move on sometimes. But just keep yourself open, because if you start closing, then that's really going to mess with your psychic messaging, and that's your duty, is to keep yourself open. A big one that I think every psychic goes through is that you do a reading and you're upset after the reading. And that can be all of the things that we're talking about. I couldn't give a message. I couldn't give them anything that they understood. I feel like I'm a complete failure. If you're feeling like that after a reading, that means you are taking it way too personal and you need to calm down, because it's perfectly natural, A, to feel like that, but B, to feel like you're responsible. And there are factors that are not your responsibility, and frankly, you need to be okay with sometimes things just not pulling through. And lastly, your ego gets in the way when you can't even accept your psychic ability. That can be external influence, and you're afraid of other people's judgment. People are going to think I'm crazy. People will think that I think I'm that special. These are different factors that go into why someone would feel maybe embarrassed about saying that they have psychic abilities. And you know what? It's nobody's business. You don't have to tell anybody. But if you can't tell yourself, then you got a problem. Which brings me to a punk rock break. You can check that out on my blog at nextgenmedium.com. What are ways to stop the ego? When you notice it, you're able to observe it, you're able to label it. Oh wait, that's my ego. The phrase that I use that helps me when I notice those moments, I still have self-doubt, I still get a little upset if a reading didn't go great, is this phrase: it's not about me. And when I'm able to say that phrase to myself, when I notice that there's ego creeping in, and it will, it's only natural, that's when I say, it's not about me. And it kind of slaps me in the face, and it grounds me, and it digs my heels into why I do what I do. On my blog at nextgenmedium.com, you can check out the exercise I got for you guys this week, and it's all about finding those ego blocks. And if you're a person that likes to please, if you can't be wrong, or you don't believe what people say right to your face, then these would be good things to look into on my blog as to the blocks that could be affecting you. Keep up with everything Next Gen Medium at nextgenmedium.com. Thank you for joining me. Down below, I got a Patreon link that you can check out to help me out with what I do, and that is down below in the description. And please throw a comment down there too and subscribe. I like to do videos every week, and it comes out on Tuesdays at 2 p.m. So I will join you next week with NextGEN Medium, the vlog. Stay safe and wash your hands, and enjoy the scenery. That's a logging truck. I live on a busy road, so it gets a little loud sometimes. Try to ignore that and take in the peaceful backdrop.